Hi. So after the morning talks, which were more, let's say, kernel and source level, I'm gonna talk like the speaker which is after me about third-party applications, because on a server, desktop or whatever, you ain't gonna be happy with just what comes by default with your operating system. I'm gonna try to cover 3 or 4 subjects. They are very much FreeBSD specific points. So about the new options framework, about the new package format and tools, and then I'm gonna go a bit through the, let's say, quality assurance that we have for the ports and the packages. So the talk will have 3 parts, and I'll stop for questions after each part. Okay, so as I said, you have ports which are basically things to help you install third-party application by building them yourself, and you have packages which are pre-built, already compiled, already in binary form. So this is something that you can do yourself, or you can use those that the project builds on a regular basis. Now, so as I was saying, that's this is most of it. Package is a binary file, which it's actually an archive which contains the actual application which you want to install, and some more things like on what it depends on, how it is to be installed, how it is to be deinstalled. A port, it's something which you use to actually fetch the sources, compile the application, and also you basically install it, and you can build a package using the port. Okay, the thing is, our infrastructure for this, it's very old. You have here the first commit for the ports, which was done some 17 years ago. And while that system was very much new at the moment, and it was basically a very new idea, and especially since it actually worked very well. It started to show its age in the last years. We've been getting a lot of complaints from users about what they can do and what they can't do with the ports and the packages. And probably our biggest problem, it's on the binary side. It's the great majority of us are using the ports, so building installing our software ourselves, and the binary side was unfortunately pretty much, I wouldn't say neglected, but it wasn't on the first. It wasn't the priority. So this, in the beginning, it was a very simple thing. It grew up organically, and this also shows there are a lot of hacks and tricks and so on. And in the end, now we are at we see the revision, and everything. It's much bigger and much more complex. You'll see that we now have some 23,000 ports, and the lines of code in the infrastructure, the MK files, which you use to provide defaults for various types of configure system, like the auto tools, CMake, and so on. They have grown up to a rather insane quantity of 22,000, more than 22,000 lines of code in 49 files. It's very easy. If I have to port something, a new application, I'm probably gonna look at something. Let's say it's a Qt application. I'm gonna take a Qt port and copy it in some place and then start modify that. I won't start by just fetching the dist file from the vendor, extracting and starting to do everything on the command line, because it doesn't make sense. The whole framework that we have helps us not to reinvent the wheel, not to, it gives you the environment variables that tells everything that there is to be told to the configure scripts, that they're running on FreeBSD, on a specific version, with a specific version of I don't know what software and so on. So this makes it much easier even when you are porting, not only when you just are using a port. The problem is that with this number of ports and the resources we have available, we need to support basically at least the 2 Tier 1 platforms, so the 32 bits and 64 bits platform, and plus this we have to do on free supported operating system version. At the moment that would be FreeBSD 8, FreeBSD 9, which is about to be released, and head, so current. And this, I'll touch the subject again later in my my presentation. Builds up quite a few interesting problems. Basically, there are 2 kinds of problems. The numbers themselves, they're very big, so very big number of ports. And if you multiply the number of ports with the supported platforms and OS versions, the resulting number is quite big. And the second part is that you work with software developed by other people, so each one has its own, let's say, particularities, and you have to work around that many times. Right now we have a problem with head, which is now it gives you the version of as OS version. It gives you FreeBSD 10, and it just happens that almost all ports as they are now fail to build because nobody thought back then that we're gonna have FreeBSD 10, so auto tools fail and interpret FreeBSD 1.0, the string, as FreeBSD 1. Of course, a lot of things changed since FreeBSD version 1, so this is a problem that we've been trying to work around for something like 3 or 4 weeks, and we're getting there. We're not yet done, but now we can build about half of the tree, I believe, on the last run we tried, but there are still work to do. Okay, now I'm going to talk about in the first part about a new thing or a greatly changed thing in ports. Ports are very nice because you can make an application use what you really need to do. Think about something that uses a database. It might support from the vendor MySQL, Postgre, SQLite, and so on. But you don't want to have support for all that because you use, let's say, only Postgre. And then you'll compile in only the Postgre support, you'll have only Postgre server installed on your machine, and so on. This we can do now. Now, the problem here is that we have a system which we call options. It's an example here from one of the ports I maintain. And you can choose, I want this feature, or I want that feature, or whatever. Of course, this is a rather incomplete, in actual state, it's a rather incomplete system. So, even so, it's much better than to having to read all the makefile and see what magical things you have to define on the command line when you write there make in the port directory. I had once to install a server very fast. It wasn't a complicated thing, just a web server, a mail server, and so on. But I started from scratch. And at some point, I had to go through all, not all, but almost all the make files. Like, my target port was Apache. But, well, Apache has some dependencies, which have some other dependencies and so on. And going through all the make files just to see what you actually need and what things you have to define to build it the way you want it, it takes a lot of time. The options framework tries to help you in a friendly way. Just, you have the name of the options, you can select it based on this description. Now, however, it has a lot of limitation. We only can turn an option on and off. We can say if this option is on, then the other one can't be also on. We can say you need to choose at least one from these three options. And another thing is that an option that actually does the same thing in various ports, it's called in different ways, which makes it pretty much hard to enforce this option globally. Let's say you always want, in my example, I always want Postgre. Well, it's an unfortunate example actually, because that's consistent, but we don't have a mechanism to verify this. So if I want, let's say, I have an option which is with Postgre, right? I want to define this in one place on my server, and then all the ports that can use Postgre would automatically pick that up. If we are not consistent, and in 23,000 ports, it's a bigger problem to be consistent if you don't have something, a big enforcer to do this automatically, then you sooner or later run into trouble. It has been done in the last year, let's say, it's a new, improved options framework, which will support and address all this problem that I've talked about. So we'll have not only simple options, that on and off, we'll have also multiple options, so you need to choose at least one. You will have what it's here, it's called single options. It's basically exclusive options like radio buttons, you can choose only one and only one. And also, this is something which hits you very hard especially when you build for more than one machine. System-wide options, that's the thing I was talking about. I'm defining that I want this in somewhere, let's say in make.conf, and then this will be propagated in all my ports. No matter what port I build, if it can support that option, it's going to be defined, or the opposite, whatever I need. Also, we'll have some generic options, because, like, if you know the knobs file, it's now a name, a short name, and a description. We're going to support this, but for more than just a few, I don't know, 30 or something. There are going to be more, so you don't have to find out a new name and a description. A good thing is that we're going to have automatically check that everything it's defined as it should be. So if one from a group of options, one has to be defined, then this is going to be checked automatically. You don't have to write things in each port's make file to check that one option or another, which are exclusive, aren't both defined, and so on. So this whole thing is going to be implemented in the MK files and done automatically. The whole system is a bit complex, but I'll show you an example about what you can do with it, and I think it's gonna work much better than what we have now. Basically, I think we are addressing all the problems that have been raised by the users during the years. And of course, it's backward compatible, which means that we can put it in production right now, and we don't need to modify 23,000 ports just to have this new system in. Yeah, we'll have to modify them for them to take advantage of the new framework, but that we can do. We don't have to do that over the night, which would be, of course, pretty much impossible. Now, this is an example of what you could do in a make file. So, for example, I'm defining on the first line, I'm defining 3 options. Okay, and this make show config for that thing in the make file would show you this. The first 3 options are binary options, right, or either on and off, and they have some description. You can have the global description, system level description, or you can redefine them if your port is a bit particular and you need to give more information or whatever. Then you have group of options, so for the options multi, right? We're defining 2 groups of options with each one with 2 options in them, and this is from group 1 you must choose at least one of them. So either opt 4 or opt 5. The next one it's for what we've called single options. Then also you have the possibility to of course set which options are on and which options are off. You know, the maintainer of the port sets this is the best configuration I can think about for my port. And you can exclude system level options, like for example, by default all ports build documentation. Now, if my port can't say I build or not documentation, or better said, I don't support building the port without documentation, building and installing, then I'm going to exclude this option from my port, or I don't have internationalization support in my port, so I'm excluding this in the make file of the port. This is options exclude. And then, as I told you, you can define the description of each of the options. So going again at show config, there are the binary, let's call it that, binary options. We have options that you have to choose at least one of them. And again, the same thing for the second group of options. And then the third type of options, which you can choose one and only one. And this is actually, it looks much nicer on a console. Basically, it tells you that you're building it with docs, with internationalization support, without option A, without option B, without option C, and so on. And it gives you the option groups. You see the G and B that were the 2 groups, and so on. And this, it's basically very easy to parse it in a script if you want to do something automatic and so on. And there's another thing that allows you to query, to build up a query, something like I want, like you do in a printf, you know, with parameters and so on. Well, so this is the very short presentation of the new options framework. Now, if there are questions, I want to respond at them now.
So, do you have any questions?
How do the options affect the binary packages?
Well, this is something that I would go in much detail in the second part of my talk, but the idea is that, of course, any option affects in one way or the other the binary package. If you need to record in the package.
No, I mean that.
Okay.
I mean that. Of course, the content is different, but for the package management, what changes in a binary package?
Basically, just because of the options and new generation, it doesn't change anything. Because there's a problem. You have the format of a package, right? Like it is now. It records dependencies, right? So you know you have this package. You know on what other packages it needs to run, but that's all that you know. This is a big limitation of the current way we're dealing with binary packages. The new options won't change by themselves anything in this area, but the next part, which is about packages, then the new packaging system, will actually give the answer to your question. If there aren't any other questions, I'm gonna go to that subject. If not,
I have another question. How do you handle the case when for building package one package with an option, you need another package to have one particular option set as well, otherwise it doesn't work. But that's another package option.
Yeah, which is one other big problem. Well, okay, so I'm jumping a bit ahead. This is something which we haven't actually solved for the moment. You know, I know what you're telling me. I need, for example, PER to be compiled with threads because I don't know what port wants that. So this is not we're finding our way around this. It's not solved we have some prototype things, but we're not happy with them for the moment. And also there's another thing, we don't want to make a lot of change in a very short time. So we have this problem that we have a user base. You can put them on hold for 6 months until you change everything, which is going to be much better. But you can't tell them, well, you know, guys, sorry, we're working on something extraordinary, but please give us 6 months without updates, without anything. That's one of the biggest problems, honestly. You know, Dragonfly, when they split up, they chose to dump our port system and go for package SRC.
Package source.
Yeah, but they were on hold in that moment. They didn't have any user base and so on, so they could afford to do that kind of big change. We need, and this is something, you know, we're getting a lot of ideas from people and so on, but we also and always need to think about what will change in all our user cases, which makes it very hard, and sometimes it makes us to be very slow to respond to some specific change requests and so on. But I don't see how, with the actual level of resources, both in terms of hardware and of human resources, don't know exactly how we can do it better. Okay, so now let me talk a bit about the new packages system. Packages are nice because, at least theoretically, you have everything already compiled, and we just need to fetch and install them, which is of course much faster than to build everything from scratch. The problem is that the age of our infrastructure shows. So this is the comment actually from that file, from the source, and it's pretty much true. The packaging tools that we have now are very hard to maintain, are very hard to extend, and they lack a lot of features that the ports have. There isn't any way of doing a safe upgrade. You basically, upgrading a package means deleting and installing the new version. We do the checks for conflicts and so on very late. You have first, if you don't compile your package or don't build it on your machine, you have to fetch the package, which can be, I don't know, tens of megabytes or hundreds or whatever, and then see the conflicts and so on. And another big problem, which hit us especially when the Xorg split it a few big ports in the many small ports, is that using flat text files for a database of which port requires which port installed which file and so on, it's very slow. So we have, for example, this is an example taken from my desktop. I have 924 ports or packages, their equivalent in this stage, installed, which gives you some other, I think I'm missing a zero here. It's actually 6,000 files in this database, so in var db/pkg, and with a lot of lines in them. Now, building, for example, a dependency tree, it's very hard. And you do need to do that each time you install or deinstall a port, because you need to keep that kind of information up to date. Now, the pkg-ng, it's a binary package management. It's pretty much works like apt, like pacman. It's not the same thing, but we've looked at what other people were doing and took what we thought are good ideas and implemented them in our new system. You can query and manage the packages which you have installed. You can safely upgrade installed packages. And maybe the most important thing is that everything is done in a library. That the command line tools all actually just use that library, which makes them makes everything very easy to maintain and makes building new tools, like let's say a graphical tool for package management, very easy, because everything will be using that library. No stupid code duplication and so on. And of course, they are compatible with what we have now. So we're actually waiting for the 9.0 release to put the code in. You could basically use it now. I think we've managed to get out most of the bugs, or almost all of the bugs. And you could switch your machine to use this new format as of today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So give me a... Okay, what you see there, and I'm not seeing here, it's basically a run of this new system. And maybe it's a bit too fast, but I'm going to cover each part of it afterwards.
So it's installing OpenOffice, LibreOffice.
Yeah, and first it went to the remote repository to see what's need to be installed. It also told you how much space you'll need. It's getting some dependencies that are needed and so on. If you worked with various Linux distribution, you probably you're probably used to this kind of things. So it's like Pacman or APT or so and so on. So what? Okay. One interesting thing about this new package management tools is that they actually have a concept of a repository. So you have a remote repository which have small files, a small SQLite database which stores all the information about the packages. You can just query that file and know everything that there is to know about one package and whatever other packages it requires. It's small, it's compressed, and it's optionally RSA signed. We deem that to be enough from a security point of view. If this file is signed, and we have checksums, which is another new thing for the packages themselves, then you basically know that the files you're getting are okay, are the original thing. Okay, now, so everything it's done basically by the library libpkg. It contains everything that's needed to deal with packages, to create packages, to delete packages, to delete packages that were automatically installed and so on. Automatically installed and so on. We have already written test case for binding to this library. It is thread safe, and it's pretty much easy to extend. I mean, the total number of line of codes in this whole new thing, it's smaller than what we have now, although it has much more features. We are moving from that little nightmare of flat files into an SQLite database, which is going to store everything that there is to know about a certain package. And another thing I was talking about a bit earlier is that it records what the packages are installed automatically as dependencies for my target package. So then you could auto-remove, when you install that package, you could auto-remove those that you actually won't be needing anymore. You can also export and backup and restore this database, which is another nice thing. If something goes wrong, it's very easy it's just a command away to restore it. Now, the new format, it's basically with an EAML manifest file, the scripts for upgrade and so on, and custom scripts for installing. And it also records the size of the package, the size of installed files, the type of license that it's using. So basically, you could using only packages, you can say I don't want GPL version 3 packages, and this being recorded in the package is very easy to exclude installing them, something which you can't do now. And also it records the options with which the package was built, which somewhat addresses your question. For now it just records them. So the next step, actually maybe not the next but the one after that, would be to deal with this, because before that we need to have stage installs, and that's gonna come a bit probably in 6 months to a year, depending on how fast we can move. Okay, you can interact with this via the pkg command, which takes some subcommands. I've called them local and remote subcommands. You can create a package, add, which means install or upgrade a package, should see the info about a certain package, so what it installed, what's that package about, which package installed which files, and so on. And also you can use the remote subcommands, so it gives you the repository, which is, well, the set, the metadata for the whole package set. It tells you what packages are in that set, how big they are, the dependency relations between them, and so on. So you can fetch this thing. You can find what packages you need to upgrade. You can search, query the remote repository for new versions of packages, and of course you can install them. And maybe one thing which I didn't point out strongly enough is that you actually have this real idea of packages repositories, which means that you, for example, can build your own packages, have them in the repository, or have a few repository, and deploy them very easy on various type of servers, because you probably don't want the same software compiled with exactly the same on different servers. If you have a few servers, you might have differences, and this actually helps very much. This I've told you about, that we have this is a very small file, so it's very fast to acquire it, to fetch it, or update your local copy of the metadata of the repository, and acquire it afterwards. And basically that's all. You can get more information from the wiki, or see the code, and try the code from GitHub. The main authors are Baptiste and Julien, and what prodded them into action was the NetBSD's pkg-in. Well, this pretty much covers pkg-ng. Now, questions? Yeah.
Have you planned to include SQLite into FreeBSD base, because it's a prerequisite for your new package, new generation?
Well, actually, the current view, initially this pkg-ng was supposed to be committed in the base, which is a wonderful thing, because you have it when you install the system. But that means you're very stuck on a specific OS version, right? You know, FreeBSD 10, let's say, when we're going to do the switch. So actually, in the end, the best way to go forward is to have this thing in the port system, and only have some, let's call it a bootstrap thing in the base system. So we're going to have something, a bootstrap in the base system, something for the ports, and then the actual tool is going to live in the ports, right? So the bootstrap will just get you the newest version of pkg tools, the whole thing, and which will make changing, for example, packages format and other things like that easy, because you won't be stuck with a certain format for, I don't know, 2 releases or 3 releases. And no, to put SQLite into the, well, I wouldn't oppose the idea. I mean, we have things that shouldn't be there anyway.
Okay, I have another question. Has there been already some consideration of architecturally independent packages? Or even version independent packages? Because we have quite a lot of packages, for example, PHP based or script based web server packages that just really install only PHP code, which is completely independent whenever you are in FreeBSD 8, 9, 7 or even that. And I mean, this is a great example of replication. I mean, we have the same package, maybe different, maybe even the dependencies are the same. Yeah, just the FreeBSD version changes, and the whole contents of these packages is also identical.
Yeah, well, thoughts there have been, but nothing was done until now. The problem is that you basically had to record that kind of information actually in the port, you know. In the end, the package is generated from a port. And that's not as easy as it seems. I mean, you can't say that all PHP ports that install scripts are the same on all OS versions.
I'm okay with it, included it in a port. That would be, from my point of view as a port maintainer of quite a bunch of ports, it would be okay from the side of the point manager. Everything we would need to do somehow to teach the system, for example, that this specific package has to be downloaded from a different place or directory or something.
Okay, we have two kind of problems here. First of all, recording that information in a port, it isn't hard. You know, you could probably also record it in something like index or in the repository database. It would be easy to do it. What you're gonna run into, it's the actual support for the distribution of the packages and so on. So basically, for now, until we have just one version of the ports, right? We build packages which might or not differ on various OS versions. We've made a step forward here, but from another point of view. Now we build the packages on the oldest supported release. So basically, those packages will run those packages on the newer versions, which is something nice from many points of view. That's about all I can say on this subject. It's not a bad idea, I like it. I'm not sure how exactly we would implement it with our current tools. That's the thing that I'm not very sure about. So basically, if I understand right, you just say, put something in the make file and say, this is okay, it's the same on all.
Yeah, that it's an architecturally independent package, for example.
Yeah, that we can do, and with the pkgng, it's very easy to use, basically to assemble the architecture in the dependent packages and the dependent one in the same repository, right? Because you have all the information there in the meta file of the repository.
Okay, the last question of me, is there any plans to move finally to XZ compression? Because from the port mid-year, what I was reported, I mean, they had no time for FreeBSD 9. They said, okay, let's leave it for FreeBSD 10. So because I have prepared the infrastructure, actually, it's already ready. So, but they just told me that TBZ is hard-coded in most of the.
Basically, now the default with pkgng is XZ. So the repository it's compiled with XZ, and the packages would be the same. And I think we've managed to actually fix all the crafting pointy hat scripts and so on. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for questions. No more time left for questions, but Ion-Mihai is available the rest of the day, so you can ask him personally. So thank you very much for the talk.